Hello and welcome to Infidelity Tales Lab. Your support is invaluable to us. We would appreciate knowing your geographical location as you join us today, whether at home or on the go. Please share with us below. Now, let us proceed to today's story. Chapter 1. The Architect. Vincent Riker sat in his basement workshop, meticulously crafting the miniature model of what would become Sullivan Plaza. His weathered hands moved with surgical precision as he attached the final piece to the scale model. The clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m. It was another late night, a routine he had grown accustomed to. The basement walls were adorned with architectural awards, certificates, and blueprints, showcasing 20 years dedicated to his craft. However, none of his colleagues at Sullivan Development fully recognized the depth of his genius, not even Howard Sullivan, his father-in-law and boss for 15 years, who failed to appreciate the brilliance behind Vincent's designs. As he continued working, Naomi's voice unexpectedly interrupted him. His wife of 12 years stood at the bottom of the stairs, her silk robe loosely tied, with amber hair cascading over her shoulders. As always, the scene was striking, even at this hour. Vincent gestured towards the model, indicating that the presentation was scheduled for tomorrow. Naomi approached, examining the intricate design with a keen eye. "Howard will appreciate it," she remarked, adding a hint of expectation regarding the time it had taken from their shared moments. Her fingers lightly brushed his shoulder, a gesture that once held deeper meaning but now felt somewhat rehearsed. Vincent observed this dynamic but chose to remain silent. His 15 years at Sullivan Development had instilled in him a sense of patience, while his 12 years of marriage to Howard's daughter had taught him the importance of discretion, especially in light of the past 7 months of uncertainty. His wife's infidelity had taught him the importance of observation. "I'll be up soon," he promised after Naomi returned upstairs. Vincent opened his laptop and checked the tracking software he'd installed on her phone. The location history confirmed what he already knew: 3 hours at the Wellington Hotel downtown, room 1217, the same as last week and the week before. Vincent wasn't a violent man. His vengeance wouldn't come from his fists but from his intellect. He had built his career creating spaces that outlived their creators, understanding the significance of proper design. Demolition necessitated more planning than construction. The following morning, Vincent drove to Sullivan Development headquarters with the model secured in the back seat. The radio reported another record-breaking stock performance for the company. Howard Sullivan had built an empire, and Vincent had designed every significant structure within it. At 45, Vincent upheld the physical discipline from his military days, a past he seldom discussed. Prior to becoming an architect, he had served in military intelligence, honing skills he continued to utilize. Sharp yet concealed beneath its unpretentious facade, the Sullivan headquarters radiated in the morning light, embodying Vincent's vision. Although it bore Howard's name, as he parked, he noticed Colin Burns' Mercedes occupying the executive spot adjacent to Howard's. Colin, Howard's new protege, was 15 years Vincent's junior, possessing an MBA but lacking real-world experience or talent. Only connections, charisma, and seemingly enough allure to captivate Naomi. Vincent navigated through the lobby, where security personnel and receptionists welcomed him with warmth. In his senior position, he consistently treated support staff with respect, in contrast to Howard and Colin, who often overlooked them in the elevator. He adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. Today was not about confrontation but rather about confirmation, after which the real work would commence. Chapter 2. Fault Lines. The boardroom fell silent as Vincent presented the model of Sullivan Plaza, a groundbreaking design that integrated sustainable architecture with innovative aesthetics. Howard Sullivan examined it with a scrutinizing gaze while Colin promptly highlighted what he considered flaws in the eastern support structure, describing it as unorthodox. He asserted, without basis, that a traditional approach would be more cost-effective. Vincent, however, remained composed, explaining that the eastern support represents a key innovation, reducing materials by 30% while enhancing structural integrity. He noted that 3 independent engineers had verified the calculations. Howard, dismissively, interjected that the design was too experimental, stating that they were not in the business of architectural experiments. In the realm of business for 15 years, Howard has consistently taken credit for successes while attributing any complications to Vincent. Vincent observed the exchanged glances between Howard and Colin, sensing a shift in the atmosphere today. Something felt more conclusive. Following the meeting, Vincent returned to his office, where Melissa, his dedicated assistant of 8 years, awaited him with a look of concern. "They've called in HR," she whispered. "Third floor conference room in an hour." "What's happening, Vincent?" Vincent expressed his gratitude for her warning. Melissa was well aware. She possessed a deeper understanding of the company's inner workings than even Howard. Her father had been one of Howard's original investors before being inexplicably bought out for a fraction of his investment during a personal crisis. Vincent had hired her when no one else would, acknowledging both her talent and her drive to comprehend Sullivan development from the inside. "Would you mind backing up my personal design files as a precaution?" Vincent inquired. Melissa nodded, grasping the underlying implication. "I already did. There's an external drive in your desk drawer. Additionally, I have made copies of the other documents you requested. These documents represent 3 years of meticulous documentation regarding Howard's building code violations, safety shortcuts, permit manipulations, and tax maneuvers. While none of these actions are technically illegal when considered individually, they become quite concerning when compiled." An hour later, Vincent was seated across from Howard, Colin, and a nervous HR representative named Dennis. The office overlooked the Sullivan Tower, which was Vincent's most significant design, although Howard had received all the accolades. "We are letting you go due to performance issues," Howard stated flatly, avoiding eye contact. Vincent nodded calmly. "Performance issues after 15 years?" Collins slid a severance package across the table. "The company's direction is changing. Your designs are becoming outdated." Vincent made no move to take the envelope. "And when did my wife decide that our marriage was similarly outdated?" The room temperature seemed to drop as Howard's expression hardened. "This is a professional separation, Vincent. Keep personal matters personal." Considering how intertwined their situations had become, Vincent stood straightening his jacket. "I'll clear my office by the end of the day." As Vincent departed, he heard Colin mutter something about taking it better than expected. Little did they know that Vincent had anticipated this day for months. The pieces were already in motion. When Vincent returned to his office, Melissa was waiting, her eyes red but determined. "They're letting me go too. Restructuring, they claim." Vincent nodded. "Perfect timing for both of us then." "Perfect," Vincent replied. "Are you planning a redesign, Melissa? Something far more permanent than the demolition of Sullivan Plaza Chapter 3. Vincent drove home with a model of Sullivan Plaza in his passenger seat, the only item he had taken from his office beyond his personal designs. The security guards had watched uncomfortably as he left, many having known him for years. One had whispered, "This isn't right, Mr. Riker," as he passed. Home was a modernist structure Vincent had designed himself, one of his first projects after leaving the military. Howard had been impressed enough to hire him, then later to introduce him to Naomi. The house represented what Vincent had once believed was a foundation for his future. Now it felt like a beautifully designed lie. He entered to find Naomi packing his suitcases, her movements efficient and detached. She barely looked up when he entered their bedroom. "Howard called you," Vincent stated. "He was concerned about how you might react." Naomi continued. As he folded his clothes, Vincent recognized the significance of this moment, a clean break after 12 years of marriage, marked by his belongings and luggage. She finally met his gaze, asserting it was time for a fresh start. Coldly, she handed him a brochure for a homeless shelter, suggesting it would serve as a temporary solution until he found something more permanent. The calculated cruelty of her actions confirmed his suspicions. This was not an impulsive decision but a deliberate elimination. Vincent accepted the brochure without comment. She continued, her tone professionally sympathetic, mentioning that his severance should assist him until he secured new employment. However, she added that Howard had informed her about the non-compete clause that would complicate his return to architecture. Did he also mention that non-compete clauses aren't enforceable in this state? Vincent observed the realization flicker across her face, along with the fact that he had maintained his military pension all these years, the one she believed he had forfeited. Naomi faltered for the first time, asking what he meant. He replied, indicating that she and Howard might have underestimated him. "I have planned this meticulously, but your plans are based on false assumptions." Vincent picked up the suitcases. "There's no need to change the locks. I won't be returning." "Where will you go?" A hint of genuine confusion entered her voice. To finish what I started 15 years ago, Vincent drove directly to a modest apartment building across town. The unit on the top floor had been leased under his birth name, Blake Vincent Riker, for the past 5 years, a contingency he established when he first suspected something was amiss at Sullivan. The development of the apartment served not merely as a secondary residence, it functioned as a strategic command center. The walls were adorned with photographs, documents, and connections that outlined the vulnerabilities of the Sullivan empire. Howard had constructed his company through manipulation and calculated betrayals of partners. Vincent had dedicated years to meticulously documenting every shortcut, code violation, and ethical breach. Melissa awaited his arrival, having utilized the key he had entrusted to her months prior, anticipating the necessity of a contingency plan. Everything is prepared. The Operation Aftershock is ready to commence at your discretion. Vincent placed the model of Sullivan Plaza on the table and opened his laptop. They believe they have dismantled my career and marriage in a single day, yet they remain unaware of what true demolition entails. He initiated a program that executed a series of pre-programmed electronic fund transfers, strategically moving his substantial savings through various accounts to prevent them from being frozen by Howard's banking connections. Subsequently, he made a call to a number known to only a select few. General Blackwood, this is Riker. Yes, that Riker. I am reaching out to request the favor we discussed. A week has passed with no communication from Vincent, no attempts to access his previous accounts, no appeals to Howard for reconsideration, and no urgent calls to Naomi. Just silence. Then the calls started. Initially a few, then dozens. Naomi's phone was inundated with calls from Vincent's number, but when answered, there was only silence. Howard experienced the same issue. By the end of the week, they had received a total of 93 calls between them. Frustrated and increasingly unsettled, Howard and Naomi decided to drive to the homeless shelter. They sought shelter from the brochure, only to find that Vincent had never arrived. Attempts to reach his former military contacts yielded no results, as no one had heard from him in years. It was Colin who ultimately pieced together the clues after receiving a mysterious package that contained Vincent's dog tags and military ID. Blake Vincent Riker, Colin read aloud. Wait, Riker? As in Howard. General Riker's documents were snatched by Howard. That's impossible. The general's son was a classified intelligence operative who supposedly died. Howard's face drained of color as the realization set in. Naomi insisted on the urgency of locating him immediately. Howard's hands shook as he redialed Vincent's number, fearing they might have just made a grave error. Chapter 4. The Ghost Architect. Could you reiterate why we're concealed in a facility beneath your apartment? Melissa inquired, observing Vincent as he adjusted the equipment in what resembled a military-grade command center. It's not a bunker, Vincent clarified. It's a secure operations facility that I constructed 5 years ago upon recognizing Howard's methodical elimination of anyone with excessive knowledge. Regarding his methods, the underground facility was alive with technology, featuring multiple screens that monitored Sullivan development properties, financial tracking software, and surveillance feeds. One monitor showcased Naomi and Howard's increasingly frantic efforts to locate Vincent. 93 calls, Melissa noted. That's precisely what you anticipated. Howard tends to panic in patterns. Vincent adjusted a dial, reflecting on how his father exhibited similar behavior during joint operations with his father's unit, predictable under pressure. Vincent's true background, however, remained largely undisclosed. Vincent, the son of General Alexander Riker, was recruited into a specialized intelligence unit immediately after graduating from MIT. His architectural skills were not merely artistic, they were strategic. Vincent had previously designed secure facilities for government agencies, but a mission that went awry compelled him to assume a new identity. Howard Sullivan was unaware that he had employed the son of his father's military adversary. By the time Vincent married Naomi, he had completely adopted his cover. Now, with everything at stake, Vincent was beginning to reclaim his true self. Melissa reported they received the dog tags, while observing another screen. Colin made the connection faster than anticipated. Colin Byrne is many things, but unintelligent isn't one of them, Vincent acknowledged. He's the only real threat in this scenario. A secure phone line rang, and Vincent answered, activating a voice modulator. Report Phase 1 complete, said the voice of Damon Lynch, Vincent's former teammate from his military days. Sullivan Tower security system has been compromised. We have eyes everywhere. Vincent ended the call. Melissa, please. Provide details regarding the Sullivan Foundation Gala scheduled for 2 weeks from Saturday. All major investors, political allies, and business partners will be in attendance. She accessed the guest list, noting that the Sullivan Plaza project will be announced as Howard's legacy achievement, with Colin appointed as the new lead architect. I assume the modifications to your designs have already begun. Melissa confirmed that the eastern support structure you innovated has been replaced with a conventional design, which is structurally compromised if constructed on that specific bedrock formation. Vincent concluded, I designed it with intention. The true plans incorporate a geological compensation factor that was omitted from the official documentation. Melissa appeared taken aback. I implemented a fail-safe. Howard has a track record of compromising quality post-approval. I required leverage to guarantee the construction was executed properly. Vincent displayed a geological survey, noting that the eastern section of the construction site is situated on an unstable fault line, which poses risks only when conventional support methods are employed. Constructing it incorrectly may not lead to immediate collapse. However, even a minor earthquake or notable vibration could initiate a gradual structural failure. Vincent closed the file, emphasizing the importance of preventing any progress with those modified plans. A notification appeared on the main screen, prompting Vincent to initiate a video call with General Blackwood, whose weathered face appeared. Your father's files have been unsealed as requested, the general stated directly, detailing everything Howard Sullivan Sr. did to undermine Alexander Riker's efforts. Career and reputation are at stake, with all the evidence your father could not utilize due to national security concerns. The trust fund established by your father has been activated, amounting to $50 million as specified in his will, contingent upon the confirmation of your identity, plus interest. Vincent expressed his gratitude and concluded the call. $50 million, Melissa murmured, reflecting on her inheritance. Howard's father compromised her family's reputation, and Howard took away 15 years of her career. Vincent then presented architectural renderings of an impressive new development, indicating a new direction for her father's legacy. Funds are required to achieve what Sullivan Development was unable to accomplish and to rectify their existing projects by positioning myself as their solution before I become their downfall. Chapter 5. The Prodigal Husband. Howard Sullivan paced his office, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it takes, find him. The private investigator on the other end sounded resigned. Mr. Sullivan, we've tried everything. Blake Vincent Riker effectively disappeared 12 years ago when he became Vincent Riker. Now both identities have gone dark. Howard slammed the phone down as Naomi entered, looking haggard and overwhelmed. Howard collapsed into his chair. Do you have any idea what this means? Vincent is Alexander Riker's son, the same Alexander Riker my father supposedly betrayed during the Kuwait operation. What does that have to do with us? Naomi demanded. So his father was some general? Not just some general, Howard replied, his voice dropping. The man who invented modern structural sabotage techniques for the military. And Vincent has designed every major building in our portfolio for the past 15 years. The color drained from Naomi's face. Do you believe he compromised them? I have requested comprehensive structural assessments of all his designs. However, if he possesses even half the skill of his father, Howard, that remains to be seen. Colin entered without knocking, tablet in hand. We have a more pressing issue. Phoenix Development has just unveiled a groundbreaking new project that directly competes with Sullivan Plaza. Take a look at who is listed as the chief architect. The tablet displayed a rendering of an impressive structure, marked with Vincent's unique signature, and below it, the corporate leadership included Blake V. Riker, founder and CEO, has maintained a competing development company throughout this period. Naomi examined the image with concern as Colin stated, 3 of our major investors contacted us this morning. They are withdrawing their support from Sullivan Plaza to invest in Phoenix instead. They claim Riker presented geological surveys indicating stability issues at our site. Howard's phone rang again, displaying Vincent's number. Upon answering, Vincent said, Hello Howard, I believe we have some unfinished business. Vincent, listen. Blake, Vincent interjected, but you can call me Mr. Riker now that I am no longer your employee or your son-in-law. Whatever your plans may be, I am preparing to build. That is the role of an architect. I am extending a professional courtesy by informing you that your Sullivan Plaza project is unfeasible as it is currently designed, particularly regarding the eastern support and the fault line. Howard interrupted. We can resolve this issue. No, you cannot, not without my specific modifications, which were not included in the official plans. Unfortunately, those designs are now proprietary to Phoenix Development. Howard tightened his grip on the phone. Name your price. Vincent's laughter was devoid of warmth. You terminated my contract due to performance issues, Howard. My current performance commands a significantly higher price than you can afford. The line went silent. Colin's expression was serious. The geological assessment has returned. He is correct about the fault line. We cannot proceed with the construction of Sullivan Plaza as planned. Howard turned to Naomi. Contact him. He'll talk to you. Naomi hesitated. I'm not sure that's true anymore. He was in love with you for 12 years, Howard shouted. Was he? Naomi's voice was suddenly small. I'm not sure I ever really knew him. Later that evening, Vincent sat in an exclusive restaurant across from Aaliyah Drake, the city's most prominent real estate investor. At 40, she commanded respect throughout the industry and had never worked with Sullivan Development despite Howard's persistent overtures. I've reviewed your Phoenix proposal, Aaliyah said, studying. Vincent leaned over her wine glass. Ambitious doesn't begin to describe it. You're essentially planning to redefine the city skyline. I'm planning to correct it, Vincent clarified. Sullivan Development has prioritized appearance over substance for years. My designs will prioritize both. Your sudden emergence as Blake Riker after years as Vincent doesn't concern potential investors. My architectural vision hasn't changed, Miss Drake, only my willingness to compromise. Vincent slid an envelope across the table. These are the structural assessments for 6 Sullivan properties constructed in the past decade reveal critical vulnerabilities that will necessitate substantial renovations within 5 years. Aaliyah examined the documents with a discerning eye. If this information is correct, Sullivan Development is facing multiple imminent issues, and I am the only one equipped to address them. As they concluded their dinner, Vincent received a text from Melissa Naomi requesting an urgent meeting. Vincent's response was succinct. Arrange it for the penthouse in 2 days. Chapter 6. The Architect's Gambit. The penthouse of the Wellington Hotel, the very location where Naomi had engaged in her affair with Colin, now functioned as Vincent's temporary base of operations. He had reserved the entire top floor, paying in cash through a shell company. Upon her arrival, Naomi discovered Vincent standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling beneath him. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, presenting a stark contrast to the man she had dismissed 2 weeks prior. You wanted to see me? Vincent stated without turning as Naomi approached. Cautiously, Vincent Blake, whatever you prefer to call him, Mr. Riker will suffice. She flinched at his formality. We need to talk about what's happening. What's happening is a market correction. Sullivan Development has built its reputation on stolen designs and compromised structures. Phoenix Development will offer something better. This isn't about business, Naomi insisted. It's about us, about what Howard and I did. Now Vincent's expression turned unreadable. There is no us, Naomi. You made that perfectly clear when you packed my bags and handed them to me. Me a brochure for a homeless shelter. I didn't know who you really were. Precisely the problem. 12 years of marriage, and you never bothered to discover who I was beyond what I could provide for you and your father. Naomi's composure cracked. That's not fair. You hid your identity, your family. I protected information that was classified, but everything else, my principles, my passion, my loyalty, was genuine. Vincent approached her slowly. Can you say the same? I made a mistake with Colin, a terrible mistake. Your mistake wasn't Colin. Your mistake was... Believing I was dispensable, Vincent returned to the window. Sullivan Development is losing investors at an alarming rate, and Howard's political connections are distancing themselves. Colin's attempts to modify my designs have been rejected by the Planning Commission. How do you know all this? I designed your father's security system, Naomi. Did you think I wouldn't build myself a backdoor? Tears formed in Naomi's eyes. What do you want from us? From you, nothing. From Howard, Acknowledgement of what? Of what his father did to mine, of what he did to my... The career of the corners he cut that endangered thousands of people in buildings I designed. Vincent handed her a folder detailing the structural compromises in Sullivan Tower. The main support columns were built with substandard materials after I approved the final plans. Naomi paled as she reviewed the documents. If this is true, it is, and in the event of an earthquake measuring 5.0 or higher on the RTOR scale, the tower would suffer catastrophic failure. My God, Howard's office is on the top floor. The board meets there weekly. Yes, they do. Vincent took back the folder. Phoenix Development has submitted a proposal to the city for comprehensive structural reinforcement of all Sullivan properties at our expense. Naomi looked confused. You're helping us? I'm helping the innocent people who work in and live around those buildings. Vincent's expression hardened. As for Sullivan Development itself, my offer is simple. Complete corporate dissolution. Assets have been transferred to Phoenix. Howard has announced his retirement, citing health concerns. He will never agree to the notion that this company is merely his life's work. It is my life's work, and he merely put his name on it. Vincent checked his watch and stated, "You have 48 hours to convince him. After that, I will release the structural reports to the public, the properties will be condemned, and Sullivan Development will face criminal negligence charges." Naomi started toward the door but then paused, saying, "For what it's worth, I did love you once." Vincent replied, "No, Naomi, you loved the idea of me. An architect who contributed significantly to your father's wealth and never questioned your absences." Vincent turned away. That man is no longer present after her departure. Melissa emerged from the adjoining room, where she had been monitoring security. "Do you think she'll convince Howard?" she inquired. "Howard will never surrender his company," Vincent replied, "but that was never the real plan." Vincent then pulled up a security feed showing Naomi making a phone call in the elevator, with a voice recognition program transcribing her words in real time. "He knows everything, Dad, about the buildings. Regarding the materials we need to relocate, we are currently on schedule." Vincent quietly informed Damon that it is time to proceed with Phase 3, Chapter 7 on structural integrity. Howard Sullivan called for an emergency board meeting at 7 a.m. the following morning. The Sullivan Tower boardroom was filled with anxious executives and legal counsel as he outlined the situation. Vincent Riker, now identifying himself as Blake Riker, is threatening to undermine this company with false structural claims, Howard stated. "We must act swiftly to discredit him." Colin projected the documents. "Our engineers have conducted preliminary assessments of our properties. While they have not found evidence of imminent danger, they acknowledge the existence of certain anomalies in the structural designs, anomalies that only the original architect could fully explain." Patricia Winters, the company's chief legal counsel, stated, "Mr. Sullivan, I must advise caution. If these concerns are legitimate and we dismiss them—" "They're not legitimate," Howard interrupted, slamming his fist on the table. "This is corporate sabotage by disgruntled ex-employees." An employee, the son of General Alexander Riker, Colin, reminded the room of a man with significant governmental connections. Howard glared at him, questioning whose side he was on. "The side that doesn't end up in prison for criminal negligence," Colin replied evenly. "I've been reviewing Vincent's personnel file. Did you know he maintained top-secret clearance throughout his employment here?" The boardroom fell silent as the implications sank in. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Howard demanded. "I'm suggesting that Vincent Riker may have played a role beyond that of an architect in recent years." Before Howard could respond, the building's emergency system activated, and alarms blared as the automated voice announced a structural integrity alert, urging immediate evacuation via designated emergency routes. Confusion erupted as board members hastily gathered their belongings. Howard attempted to restore order, urging everyone to remain calm, asserting that this was clearly Riker's doing, a potential hack into our systems. The building shuddered subtly, and small particles of dust descended from the ceiling. Patricia Winters stood firmly, stating, "No, I'm leaving. I suggest everyone do the same." As the room emptied, Howard's phone rang. Vincent again. "What have you done?" Howard demanded. "I've activated the monitoring system I installed in Sullivan Tower 3 years ago," Vincent replied calmly. "The one you refused to pay for officially, so I implemented it anyway. It's detecting unusual stress patterns in the eastern support columns, exactly as predicted. "This is illegal!" Howard exclaimed. "I'll have you arrested for potentially saving hundreds of lives," Vincent interjected. "The system is currently transmitting data directly to the Department of Building Safety. Structural engineers are being dispatched at this moment. The building has trembled once more noticeably this time. That was not an earthquake, Howard. It was material fatigue. The substandard concrete you substituted after the final inspections is starting to fail under normal stress loads." Howard glanced out of the boardroom windows to observe individuals evacuating the building and moving onto the street below. "You will not evade the consequences of this situation, regardless of the strategy you are employing." "This isn't a game," Vincent interrupted. "It's an intervention. Sullivan Tower is becoming unsafe and will be condemned by this afternoon. Sullivan Development will face investigations into every property in its portfolio. Your company is finished." "Then I'll take you down with me," Howard replied. "You designed these buildings. My reputation is secure. I've already provided authorities with documentation showing my original designs were altered after approval, including your signatures on the change orders." The line went dead. A more intense tremor shook the building, prompting Howard to finally join the evacuation, his face pale. By nightfall, Sullivan Tower had been fully evacuated and was surrounded by emergency vehicles. News helicopters circled overhead as officials from various agencies assessed the structure. The city's Department of Building Safety had issued emergency inspection orders for all properties under Sullivan Development. Vincent observed the coverage from Phoenix Development's newly established headquarters across town, while Melissa and Damon monitored communications as Howard continued his efforts. Sullivan was interviewed on live television looking disheveled and defensive. "Mr. Sullivan denies allegations of structural negligence," the reporter summarized, but sources within the department confirmed that preliminary findings show significant deviations from approved architectural plans. Melissa unmuted the broadcast. "The stock is in free fall. Sullivan Development has lost 60% of its value since markets opened in Phoenix." Vincent inquired, "Up 38% after announcing the emergency reinforcement program." Damon reported, "The mayor's office is calling you a public safety hero for exposing the issues." Vincent nodded, watching Sullivan Tower on the screens. "Howard will try to salvage what he can, probably attempt to sell remaining assets before they're frozen." "Already happening." Melissa confirmed 3 subsidiary companies have initiated paperwork for rapid ownership transfer to whom shell corporations that ultimately trace back to Colin Byrne. Vincent smiled slightly. "So Colin's making his move earlier than expected." Good. Damon looked confused. "I initially perceived Byrne as adversarial. However, I now recognize his ambition, albeit questionable ethics, and his personal involvement with my ex-wife." Vincent has pointed out that Byrne is also predictable and financially overextended due to his attempts to acquire Sullivan assets, which positions him in the final phase of my strategy. Vincent displayed documents on the main screen, revealing the concealed liens I have placed against all Sullivan Development projects over the past 5 years. These small strategic investments, made through various intermediaries, may seem individually insignificant, but collectively they represent substantial ownership. Controlling interest in the debt structure, Melissa realized that if Sullivan defaults, Vincent corrected, "those assets don't go to Colin Byrne, they come to me." Chapter 8. Counter-offensive. Colin Byrne considered himself a master strategist. As chaos engulfed Sullivan Development, he methodically positioned himself to emerge from the wreckage with the company's most valuable assets. Howard had practically handed him control during the crisis, too consumed with saving his reputation to notice Colin's maneuvers. Maneuvering, what Colin didn't expect was to find Vincent Riker waiting in his office at midnight. Breaking and entering. "Now, Riker." Colin maintained his composure despite his surprise. "It's not breaking when you have the access codes," Vincent replied, seated comfortably in Colin's chair. "You've been busy today. 5 property transfers, 3 asset reallocations, and a very interesting wire transfer to a Cayman account." Colin poured himself a drink. "I suppose you're here to gloat. You've destroyed Sullivan. Congratulations." Sullivan was destroying. Long before my intervention, events were already set in motion. I simply expedited the timeline. Vincent gestured to the chair opposite him. "I'm here to discuss your next move." "My next move?" Colin laughed. "I'm salvaging what I can from this disaster, self-preservation while abandoning Howard and betraying Naomi in the process. You two make a perfect match. Loyalty isn't either of your strong suits." Colin's expression hardened. Let's dispense with pretense. We both know this was never about buildings. This was about Naomi choosing me over you." Vincent's smile was cold. "Is that so? Do you truly think that I engineered the collapse of a multi-billion-dollar corporation due to my wife's infidelity? That notion is utterly misguided. What then do we say about justice, consequences, and the natural order re-establishing itself?" Vincent stood firm. "Howard Sullivan constructed his empire by appropriating the work of others, my father's, mine, and countless others. You have mirrored his actions by claiming what did not belong to you, including your wife." Colin smirked, acknowledging that Naomi had made her choice, as had he, and now they both faced the consequences. Vincent placed a folder on the desk, and Colin opened it to find documentation of his financial maneuvers, including the offshore transfers. "How did you?" "I designed the Sullivan Financial Management System 5 years ago. Did you think I wouldn't build in monitoring protocols?" Vincent circled the desk. "The SEC will receive copies of these documents tomorrow morning unless you comply with my terms." Colin's arrogance faltered. "What terms?" "Simple. The assets you've acquired must be returned to their rightful owners. The owner has decided that you must resign from Sullivan Development and withdraw from the industry entirely, with no further contact with Naomi. This is a serious matter, and failure to comply could result in federal prosecution for securities fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Vincent is preparing to leave, and you have until morning to make a decision. Choose wisely." Meanwhile, Naomi paced her living room, observing the coverage of Sullivan Development's collapse. Her phone rang. It was Howard again. "Have you reached him?" Howard asked without introduction. "No, Dad. Vincent isn't taking my calls." "We need leverage," she replied. In an attempt to compel his decision, Naomi sank onto the sofa. "I don't believe we have any leverage remaining. He has outmaneuvered us at every turn." "There must be something," Howard insisted. "Some weakness we can exploit." "The only weakness Vincent ever had was his loyalty to those who didn't deserve it," Naomi replied bitterly. "And we destroyed that ourselves." Her doorbell rang, and on her security monitor, she saw Melissa waiting outside. "I have to go, Dad." Naomi ended the call and opened the door cautiously. "Melissa, this is unexpected." "Mr. Riker sent me," Melissa stated. "He has a proposition for you that he was unable to deliver personally, as he is currently in discussions regarding similar terms with Mr. Byrne." Melissa handed Naomi an envelope containing divorce papers. "Mr. Riker is offering generous terms, which include the retention of this residence and a settlement that will ensure your financial security." Naomi opened the envelope with trembling hands. "If I refuse, are there no alternative terms?" "Mrs. Riker, only consequences." Melissa's expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, I advised him to make this offer to you. The settlement was his proposal. It raises questions as to why he would pursue this after all that has transpired. He mentioned something about honoring the person he believed you to be, rather than punishing the individual you have become." Melissa checked her watch and stated that there are 24 hours to sign. A courier will collect the documents tomorrow evening. After Melissa departed, Naomi examined the settlement terms, which were indeed generous, far more than she felt she deserved given the circumstances. A note in Vincent's handwriting was affixed to the final page. "Consider this my final act as your husband. Choose wisely." As dawn broke, Vincent received confirmation that Colin had accepted his terms, transferring control of all acquired Sullivan assets to Phoenix Development and submitting his resignation by noon. Howard Sullivan announced an emergency press conference, gathering before a crowd of reporters. Howard appeared defeated. After careful consideration and in light of recent structural concerns, he announced his retirement and the dissolution of Sullivan Development Corporation. As questions erupted, Howard raised his hand. "I accept complete responsibility for any construction irregularities and will fully cooperate with ongoing investigations. All Sullivan Development projects will be transferred to Phoenix Development, which has pledged to address structural issues without delay." A reporter inquired, "Mr. Sullivan, will you comment on rumors that Phoenix is led by your former son-in-law, Blake Riker?" Howard's jaw tightened. "Mr. Riker is a talented architect whose contributions to this city have been substantial. Phoenix Development is privileged to have his expertise." "Expertise?" The press conference concluded abruptly when Howard appeared to suffer a minor medical episode requiring assistance from staff watching from Phoenix headquarters. Vincent turned to Damon to arrange security for Howard's residence, ensuring it would be discreet yet effective. Damon looked surprised. "You're protecting him after everything?" Vincent clarified, "I'm ensuring he lives long enough to witness what comes next. Howard needs to see his legacy completely transformed before he's allowed any peace." Melissa entered with an update. Naomi signed the divorce. Papers are finalized with no contest and no modifications. Vincent acknowledged this, and Colin departed this morning with a one-way ticket to Singapore. Vincent anticipated that Colin would not remain absent for long. His type invariably believes in their ability to return and rebuild. Should we keep an eye on him? There is no need, as his finances and reputation have been irrevocably damaged. Colin Byrne will likely spend the remainder of his life attempting to recover what he lost today. Vincent then redirected his attention to the city map displayed on the main screen. Our current focus is on reconstruction, starting with Sullivan Tower. Chapter 9. The Shadowcast. 6 months later, the building. Previously referred to as Sullivan Tower, the structure has undergone a comprehensive renovation, reinforcement, and rebranding as Phoenix 1. Vincent's team dedicated extensive effort to rectify structural deficiencies while re-envisioning the building's function. What was once a symbol of corporate excess has now evolved into a mixed-use development that integrates commercial space with affordable housing, educational facilities, and community resources. This transformation has been featured in architectural journals globally, solidifying Vincent's esteemed reputation. As a visionary on the evening of the grand reopening, Vincent stood in what had once been Howard Sullivan's office, now repurposed as an architectural history museum. Among the exhibits was a detailed timeline of the building's original construction, including documentation of Howard's cost-cutting measures and their potential consequences. "Quite an achievement," said a familiar voice. Vincent turned to see General Blackwood, now retired but still commanding respect in his civilian attire. "My father would have appreciated the symmetry," Vincent replied, his reputation destroyed by Howard's father. Howard's legacy reclaimed by his son. The general surveyed the city through the panoramic windows. "Alexander would be proud of more than just a revenge son. This rebuilding, it's what he always believed. Architecture should be service to community, not monuments to ego." A soft chime announced another visitor. Melissa entered with a tablet displaying security feeds. "Howard Sullivan has arrived. As requested, security has escorted him to the private elevator." Vincent nodded, instructing to show him in upon arrival. After Melissa and the general departed, Vincent examined the model of Phoenix 1, prominently displayed on a pedestal. His original design was now fully realized without compromise. Howard entered moments later, appearing significantly older than he had 6 months prior. His health had declined following the collapse of his company, although his financial future remained secure due to terms Vincent had privately arranged. "You wanted to see me," Howard stated flatly. "I wanted you to see this," Vincent gestured to the model. The museum exhibits present the complete truth preserved for future generations. Every decision, every shortcut, every consequence. Howard surveyed the displays with a sense of resignation, recognizing public humiliation as a form of final revenge. Education, not humiliation, will guide future architects to learn from these mistakes. Vincent approached his former father-in-law and asked, "Tell me something, Howard. When did you first realize who I really was?" Howard replied, "Too late, obviously," as he sank into a chair. "There were signs I ignored. Your military bearing, your unexplained connections, the way you sometimes knew. There are elements that should have raised concerns, yet you accepted them without hesitation as long as I was generating wealth for you." Howard looked up with determination, "And you maintained your anonymity as long as the arrangement served your interests." "We relied on one another, Vincent, but the distinction lies in the fact that I never turned against you. Even now, this building symbolizes what we might have achieved collectively had you prioritized integrity over profit." Howard pointed to the exhibits and inquired about Naomi. "Does she have a place in a museum of betrayal?" Naomi made her own decisions and is now facing the repercussions of those choices. Following the divorce, Naomi relocated to another state, resulting in a decline in her social standing. Her relationship with Colin was publicly exposed and subsequently ended. Vincent had taken steps to ensure her financial stability, yet he had otherwise distanced himself from her life. "She occasionally inquired about you, and Howard expressed curiosity about whether you would ever forgive her." Vincent responded calmly, stating that forgiveness suggests ongoing involvement, and he had moved on from both of them. A subtle vibration indicated Vincent's phone. Upon checking, he noticed an alert from his security team regarding Colin Burns' return. The city was hosting a reopening event, and it appears we have an uninvited guest in the grand lobby. Security has intercepted Colin, who was attempting to enter with a counterfeit invitation. He is being held discreetly near the entrance as Vincent arrives. It is quite a bold move for Colin to return tonight. Vincent observes Colin struggling to maintain his composure. Colin states he came to congratulate Vincent as a matter of professional courtesy. However, Vincent reminds him that his professional status was revoked months ago, along with his assets, reputation, and future. In this industry, Vincent signaled for security to release their hold. "You're not even worth the scene your arrest would cause. You can't keep me away forever, Riker. This isn't over." Vincent studied the man who had played a significant role in the downfall of his marriage and career. Once handsome and confident, Colin now appeared desperate and diminished. "It was over the moment you chose to align yourself with Howard Sullivan and betray my trust." Vincent turned to security. "Escort Mr. Byrne off the premises. He is prohibited from entering any Phoenix property worldwide." As Colin was removed, Aaliyah Drake approached Vincent's primary investment partner. She had become instrumental in Phoenix Development's rapid expansion. In her inquiry, she noted nothing significant, a shadow from the past. Aaliyah nodded toward the central display, where Vincent's complete architectural portfolio was exhibited, including designs never built under Sullivan Development but now planned for future Phoenix projects. "Your vision is finally being realized without compromise," she observed. "That must be satisfying." "It's not about satisfaction," he replied. Vincent responded that integrity ensures structures endure beyond their creators, as Aaliyah casts shadows long after we are gone. Later that evening, as the celebration continued below, Vincent returned to the former Sullivan office where Howard remained, reflecting on the exhibits. "You've won completely," Howard conceded. "You dismantled what I established and replaced it with your own vision." "What happens now?" Vincent replied, "Now I continue to build. The distinction between us, Howard, is that my primary objective was never to destroy you. It was merely a necessary step." Toward the goal of creating something improved, Howard stood with determination, driven by a desire for retribution for his father's actions against Vincent's. "The ledger is balanced, and the truth remains intact. The remainder is merely business." Vincent extended his hand in a formal gesture, stating, "For what it's worth, I once respected your ambition." Howard regarded the offered hand with surprise before accepting it briefly, acknowledging, "I respected your talent. I should have respected the man as well." As Howard departed, Vincent remained alone in the transformed space, a representation of both his past constraints and future possibilities. From the windows, he observed the Phoenix logo illuminated across the city, his vision casting a new shadow. His phone vibrated with a text from Alyssa, "Naomi attempting to contact you again, third time this month." Vincent's reply was brief and conclusive, "No response necessary." Some betrayals could not be forgiven, some shadows could not be erased. Vincent had rebuilt his life not by forgetting the past, but by transforming it into the foundation for something stronger. The architect had become the master builder of his own future. The narrative concludes with destiny casting a lasting shadow, one that will persist long after the betrayers fade from memory. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. If you found value in this story, consider becoming part of our community by subscribing. It truly means a lot to us. For additional stories of this nature, please explore the recommended videos on screen. I look forward to seeing you there.